Hello, my name is Clay Howard, and I directed this short movie, Mariah, which is a musical production for the 48-Hour Film Project in Paducah, Kentucky in 2016. It was a fast-paced weekend, and this is a fast-paced story. We told a lot more than a 7-minute story. We start with a little reference to the wind, which is going to be our sort of elemental metaphor through this project. Of course, we had almost no wind outside all weekend, but we got one shot to suggest that it's windy. Jacob Whiteloff opens with playing his own original composition that he wrote for this Friday night when we started the project, and it actually will be incorporated in the end credits as well. It tells part of the story of this movie. Here comes Morgan Guess, who was our leading lady at the very last minute. She was only available starting late Saturday and didn't know she'd be on the team until Friday, thanks to her mother, Susan Guess, for letting her participate. Now, here she comes again. How is this possible? He sees them both, and Jacob, playing the part of Stephen Hunter, faints. Here comes Reggie Milton-Shire, played by Michael Hassel. He was the named character that had to be a required character, a foreign visitor, for the purposes of the competition. Michael and Jacob are both great actors and singers, and they play this scene great together. This is the exposition for the audience of what happened. How are there two Morgans? And they use the required line of dialogue there. She reminds me of someone. Now we flash back to a musical number that explains the whole plot of how it came to be that there's a clone in the house, which also would have worked for Foreign Visitor in a different way, but we played that part more traditionally. It was Michael's idea to have this scene be in sepia tone instead of in regular color, and that worked out very well. All of these shots, except for the opening shot with the piano, are done in the same house, courtesy of Basil and Jeannie Drosos. They're very gracious, and their house is amazing. They're not actually going into a basement here. They're coming down from the attic, but what does the audience know better? Here is a super creepy shot with an exposed incandescent light, with a cauldron full of dry ice, with an old ancient manuscript book with pictures and all sorts of creepy looking props. All the choreography and the song and the music was done by Michael Hassel, just a talented young man. That was not Morgan's hair, that was a wig he cut, and the picture was important, but we didn't have time to show it. It made note of the fact that she has a birthmark on her cheek. That will be a key for the audience later to know which one is which between Morgan and her clone. So now we come out of the big musical production, and the family is going to have to deal with the consequences, and that's sort of the theme of the movie. It actually does have a point, which is that actions always have consequences, and that, as Proverbs says, which is quoted at the end of the story, whoever brings ruin on their family will inherit only the wind. Mary and Brian Katz are the parents, and their names in the movie are Barbara and Andy Hunter. They chose those names because they're amalgamations of the names of the judges of this competition. I thought that was pretty funny, as well as a little bit cynical. So here we establish for the audience that this is Reggie Milton-Shire, a foreign exchange student. That was the required element. And we give the audience hope that this whole scenario can be dealt with a reverse spell. Andy is going to ask Reggie if the spell is reversible, and of course the audience is going to expect, as in any one of these movies that has something go on like this, that you can just reverse this and everything will be well. But we will see that the clone, Mariah, is not just some inanimate object. She also is plotting what is she going to do about this. And the audience doesn't know quite what she might come up with, but hopefully the tension is building just a little bit as the clone explains that she's convinced the father is out to get her. This shot, of course, was a little special effect. The actress played both parts, and I spliced them together. Now it's raining. That'll become important just in a moment, as there'll be a storm in a later scene that's happening the same evening. Now this shot was a continuous unbroken pan that was meant to establish for the audience that we have two actresses playing this part, because they'll see Morgan as herself, and they will see Mariah in different attire with her hair differently. And of course, Mariah is staring a hole through Dad because she's plotting against him. But it was, of course, the same actress in both roles in that unbroken shot. Now, power lines, rain, thunder, something's about to happen. Now, we establish that everybody's out of the house or unavailable to hear what's about to happen. Mom and Reggie are off to go to a show. Jacob, aka Stephen, is off practicing his song. The clone, Mariah, has figured out that she needs to make herself look just like Morgan looks, so she puts on the black shirt, she puts her hair up in a ponytail. Morgan herself is up in her room reading. Here's a towel that was a required element to use in the production, and we use it to show that she's going to wipe off and reapply her fake birthmark so that she can trick Dad here into thinking that she's Morgan and not Mariah. And of course, ominously, there's a knife on the counter. What in the world could go wrong here? That was my hand on Morgan's shoulder. It was supposed to be Morgan's hand on Mariah's shoulder. Andy really sold the choking one of the girls to death, and he sees the aftermath. One of the girls is dead. He choked her to death. And the other girl, looking just the same now, is unconscious but wakes up. Of course, he's convinced that that's his daughter and greets her so, and she plays the part because she no longer has to compete with the real Morgan. Super creepy and not what the audience expected, I hope. Well, I want to thank everybody involved in making this. Michael, Jacob, and of course Mary and Brian, and Susan Guess and her daughter Morgan Guess, who played 2 roles. Just amazing work by all of these folks. I also want to thank Paul Aho, who let us borrow equipment from the Paducah School of Art and Design, Basil and Jeannie Drosos, who let us use their house, and Basil also did cinematography, Darlene, who kept us fed, of course, and some others. Chuck Folsom let us use some of his equipment, and Bill Howerton let us use his office to have our little powwow to brainstorm, and Ellie Belcher, my niece, came up with part of the idea of how the punchline of this movie would have the most impact.